Resolution 687 on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Council Bill 687 be adopted.
It has been moved and seconded. The public hearing for Council Resolution 687 is open. May we have the staff report? I believe Happy Haynes, are you on deck? It's a busy night for you.
Thank you very much, President Pro Tem and members of council. I will be very brief because I know we are here tonight to hear from our citizens about this project. I just wanted to give you a quick background and overview. It was sometime last summer when this this opportunity came to the city, and we worked very closely with the Office of Special Events to consider it. And I will say at the outset, our department, the Department of Parks and Recreation, was among the skeptics. And so we spent a number of months doing a little due diligence on the idea of this festival, including sending a team of individuals to the sister festival that has matured in San Francisco. And we did that along with a number of other city agencies. Before I go any further, I would like to really acknowledge those individuals because it really has been a team effort. And I particularly want to thank Fred Weiss, Scott Rethlake, Laura Morales from our Department of Parks and Recreation, the Office of Special Events, Katie and Grace and her whole team, the City Attorney's Office, who've been just terrific in helping us think through each step of this process, our Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and particularly the residents and neighbors in the community, whether they were in favor or against. Their involvement at every step of this process has been invaluable and has shaped where we are tonight with the contract that you have before you. I'm not going to go through the details of the contract because I think you have seen we made a pretty lengthy presentation at committee a few weeks ago, and the contract really reflects all of those items that we went through with you at that meeting, with one exception, and I want to apologize at the outset for how late the contract actually came to you, and I know that you'll be taking a little extra time to review it, but we wanted to make sure that every last thing was in place and it was right, and we had some issues, some details to work out with excise and licensing since the council committee, and wanted to make sure that each of those pieces was in the contract that you received. During the course of the conversations in the community that started about November of last year, we have had input through a survey from over 1,000 individuals, both in the neighborhoods directly involved and neighborhoods throughout the city, as well as 1,000 petitions that we received, both in favor and in opposition to the proposal. We used all of that input to shape a set of commitments that we floated in a number of community meetings, guidelines, if you will, that helped really shape the core of the contract that you have before you. And it really, and I meant it genuinely when I said earlier, we thank those individuals who were both skeptical and opposed as much as those who were in favor, because voicing their concerns helped sharpen our thoughts and where we needed to go and the kinds of issues that needed to be addressed in this contract. And so it is a better contract, and it's a better document because of all of that input that we received. We worked with neighborhood organizations, schools, recreation centers, all of the users of the golf courses, not only the Overland one, but throughout the city. I want to thank you particularly for the support that we got from your council offices in helping with the community outreach. We had individuals literally walking door to door, and a robust online presence to try to get input. And all of that added up to the contract that you have before you this evening. Two things in particular I want to address before I sit down and then let you hear from the community. The mayor added his own input, and it was as a result of meeting with a number of neighbors in the Overland community. He made a commitment that both our department, our city, and the promoter are absolutely committed to, and that is the establishment of an accountability committee that will be very engaged, an accountability committee with a level of independence that will enable us to get real honest and genuine feedback from the community about how this event goes. And those of you who know the work that we've done around events throughout this city and in our parks, and you all walked through us just recently with the new event policy that we put in place. And I mention that because our aim in addressing all of those issues, both in that policy and in this contract, is to ensure that we have good events in this city, and that they're events that people want to go to, that they add value to our community, and that they minimize the impacts in our neighborhoods. And that is what we believe that this contract does. Councilman New, you raised a question, I think a related question about this earlier this week, with some concerns about making sure that the language of some accountability and some evaluation and review not being reflected in the contract. I will point you to the language that is in section 5.2S, which we believe does address that issue, and we're happy to work with you more directly in the future. There are two things that make this a little bit unique. One is this contract includes a fairly lengthy list of requirements and plans that the promoter must provide to the city and to our department for review and approval before we move anywhere. And the language that I just mentioned in the contract requires us to evaluate the results of all of those things. It commits and requires the promoter to be engaged in the community outreach that's necessary to get that feedback about how the festival went and what the issues were and what concerns were raised. And I'll say this to begin with. As much work as we've done and as much as we have focused on the details of this contract, we know that it is not going to be perfect day one. And that's why we've built into this process and into the contract processes that will enable us to respond, to adjust, to adapt both during the festival itself and, more importantly, afterwards, so that we make the adjustments and the changes that are needed to make this the very best festival possible. I will end with that, and thank you all very much again.
All right, thank you, Ms. Haynes. All right, we have, yep, go ahead.
I did forget one thing, and that is to make a quick introduction of the promoters from Superfly who are here tonight. I just want to make sure that you know that they are present. They are here to answer questions. I want to thank them personally for the amount of time they have spent going through in painstaking detail what we believed we needed to make a great event. This is Rick Farman from Superfly. He's a co-founder of Superfly, and I just have to say, literally a guy who's willing to roll up his sleeves and get to work and respond. And finally, David Ehrlich, who many of you know in the community, who is the festival liaison and is the local guy on the ground and has been a tremendous partner. So they are both here, available for questions after the public hearing, during, and are at your disposal. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. First, I want to just say to all the folks who are here, thank you for enduring a long time. Thank you for coming through security, sitting in hard seats. We realize that this is not the best process, but it is the only process we have, and looking to always improve that. So we want to apologize because you could be doing a lot of things at 9:40, but you are at the City Hall trying to make your city better because you care about your neighborhood. So thank you for being here. This is a courtesy public hearing. Courtesy public hearings, you cannot yield time, so it'll be 3 minutes straight up. And we'll do in favor and against. We'll be alternating everyone. The other thing is we have 28 speakers. So 28 times 3 is more than 60 minutes. So I will have a timer right here going on there, but you don't have to, everybody doesn't have to use all their 3 minutes. Many of you, especially if you're at the halfway point, you're going to start hearing speakers say similar things. And so be courteous to the folks who are on the bottom end of the list. And if you've wrapped up your comments, you can wrap it up and leave someone some more time so we can get all 28 people in. I haven't figured out the math of how to get all 28 in, but 2 minutes would be appropriate, I think. Okay, so I'm going to call the first 5. We'll leave this first row open for the first 5 people to come through. Robert Lavelle, Kathy Hamilton, Raina Razak. Okay. Thanks for your vote of confidence. All right. And Kimon Knowles and Max Hirsch. Okay. Rob Lovell, you are first. 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. It's been quite a night, a long night. And I just want to first thank you, Mr. President, council members, for allowing us to come speak. Really, I'd like to thank all the members of the government that I've dealt with over the last year. My name's Robert Lovell, and I live at 406 West Jewel, right across from the first green. So I would be one of the neighbors most directly impacted by this festival. But as I was saying, I wanted to thank the government representatives, Parks Department's Office of Special Events. I've met so many people throughout this process, and I've been impressed every step of the way. It's been very in-depth, very thorough, and I really feel that whatever happens, everybody's working for everyone's best interest. So I had some written down remarks prepared, but throughout the evening I just decided to wing it. And I kind of, feel like my philosophies are guided by good, like the greatest good for the greatest number of people, and operating in good faith. When this idea came about, I was part of the first group where it was like, hey, there's this idea being floated around. Is this something that we're even remotely interested in as a neighborhood association in pursuing? There was multiple public meetings, and every step of the way people acted with good faith, and I appreciate that. And every step of the way, the concerns were notated, they were categorized, they were tracked, they were addressed. I never heard false promises. I never heard things that would lead me to believe that anything not upfront and not in our best interest was going on. And the survey really drove that home for me, seeing all of the concerns listed out, seeing the proposed steps to address those concerns. I mean, that was pretty comprehensive. And that's why not only myself as an individual could I support it, but also support it like as a recommendation for the rest of my community. It's going to benefit the community by the money that comes in it, the attention that comes to the community. It's underserved in terms of pedestrian access, transportation, safety, things like that. And a focus in that area is going to naturally improve those things over time, like the proposed pedestrian jewel bridge. Also, the opportunity to get additional funding for community engagement, the community advisory board, the accountability board. Steps are being taken to protect our best interests, and I'm 100% comfortable endorsing this. It's going to be part of a bigger whole, in my opinion, of a synergistic thing going on with Levitt Pavilion, Swallow Hill Music, the music venues on South Broadway, possible CPR. I mean, there's a lot happening in that neighborhood, and Southwest Denver can really be placed on the map on the same level as Austin city limits, South by Southwest. So,
Your time is up. Thank you. All right, Kathy Hamilton.
Hi, I'm Kathy Hamilton, and I live in Denver. Remember when Colorado turned down the Olympics? Our state didn't want the crowd nor the expense. Overland Park neighborhood is rejecting the equivalent of the Olympics. Think out of the box. Just try to think out of the box for a minute. Can these huge events be held at Red Rocks instead? How about Bobby Yar Park? Or at the Denver Country Club? All these places have parking. The city of Denver often exceeds the carrying capacity of neighborhoods like Globeville, Swansea, and Elyria with 14-lane highway projects. Or say, a while ago when I-70 was run through the middle of my neighborhood of Berkeley. If you live there, it wasn't a success. If the Overland Park golf course were a beach, like with sand and bathers and things like that, a beach taken over for profit, you would surely be outraged. Somehow, if it's just a golf course, it just seems like, excess greensward that can just be, worked over. And, this has happened to the golf course on the other side, on the east side of the Mousetrap, because they're going to chew it up to make a drainage just for that road, that 14-lane road. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton.
And thanks for listening.
Raina Razakiu.
All right. Thank you. I'm really proud to live.
State your name for the record.
Sorry, my name is Raina Razak. And I live at 406 West Jewel Avenue with Robert Lovell, that's my husband, right across from the first green. So I'm really proud to live in a community where we have access to so many natural resources as well as urban amenities and natural activities. And I'm also proud to be here with neighbors who are so passionate about our community. Regardless of where we stand on the issue, I'm warmed by this level of civic engagement because we all love where we live and have our community's best interests at heart. I work at Denver Public Schools in the Office of Student Equity and Opportunity, so I'm passionate about eliminating the opportunity gaps that exist in our community. Southwest Denver has historically been marginalized and lacks access to a robust culture of art and music. Levitt Pavilion certainly adds to the culture of our neighborhood, and it'll take things to a new level, as well as give us the opportunity to make much needed improvements to our area, basic things like crosswalks and safe bridges to walk across. And this music festival will definitely add to that as well. Levitt just wouldn't have the capacity to make these infrastructure improvements by itself. Some of the items that I think are particularly advantageous from my personal perspective is that there will be a separate fund for community outreach efforts, which can be routed to increase arts access for our youth. Communities in Southwest Denver have been traditionally underserved, and cultures with traditionally rich art and history and tradition have had to put these traditions on the back burner as art becomes something that's more of a privilege, and as they scramble for access to community resources to highlight their culture and their art, our culture and our art. Opportunities for community folks to volunteer at the festival will gain them free access to renowned music, as well as incredible work and service experience. And this is going to be particularly helpful to young adults in our area, high schools like Abraham Lincoln, Coons Miller Creative Arts Academy, South High School, giving our youth the opportunity to access positive outlets that engage their interests. The golf course is going to be available to a much greater portion of the community as well, increasing access to this beautiful land. And the funds that are routed toward neighborhoods will help us increase our infrastructure. Thank you for your time today, and have a good night.
Thank you. A little time to spare. Okay, come on, Knowles. Oh, okay, sorry about that. All right, I'm going to call the next group Max Hirsch, Helen Orr, Andrew Gehoff, Joanne Weiss, and Terry Pescu. All come up to the front, please. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, Max Hirsch, you are up. 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Max Hirsch. I live at 1235 Grant Street in Denver. Along with my family owning businesses on South Broadway in the Overland neighborhood, I'm also a student at CU Denver. I study music business and music studies with the creative economy. And tonight, I'd just kind of like to speak behalf on the younger residents of Denver as well as the students that I go to school with. First off, Denver is an island for music. What I mean by that is it's very hard to break out of Denver as a musician, as a local musician. There's not a lot of places to go from Denver. We're not surrounded by a lot of other markets, and unfortunately, we're not a national market right now, so there's not a lot of national attention on our artists. This festival could change that, could flip that immediately. Not only will local artists be able to play at the stages during the festival with local stages, they'll be able to share stages with big names like Radiohead and stuff like that, adding to their resume about big shows that they've played. And out-of-town residents are going to come to this festival, and they're going to find their new favorite artist, and it might be a local Denver artist, and that's huge for us. And we're also going to be able to be playing bars and restaurants and venues around the area. So when this ends at 10 o'clock at night, people are going to want to continue to go out, which is going to help the businesses, and it's also going to help the artists that are playing the shows at these businesses. Next, I wanted to touch on what my age group is doing right now when we're going into the workforce. Right now, the trend has flipped from finding a job in a city, going to the city and hoping that you like the city. It's now you're going to a city for the culture, you're going to a city for the lifestyle, and you're going to search for a job in that city. And I think the Denver brand and the Denver culture is great, and it's amazing, and we're going in the complete right direction. I love it so much, and I think that this can really help that culture and really help that brand and be a positive for the city of Denver. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. Thank you for the time. All right, Helen Orr.
Thank you, council members. Excuse me. After sitting here for 5 hours after work, I'm a little rough in the throat. But thank you for the opportunity to speak. You all have heard from me and some of my other neighbors who are the neighbors of Overland North, a registered neighborhood organization recently. I really just want to touch on a couple of points. And that is that we have a great concern in our neighborhood about the use of the golf course for this festival, just in principle. And I'd like to get this in the record. It's been a designated park since 1956. On September 10th, 2010, the Denver Department of Parks and Recreation adopted rules regarding admission-based events in Denver parks. These rules were the result of a lengthy public process that included input from many citizen groups, and agencies in order to address conflicts related to major massive events being held in parks and inundating neighborhoods, etc. The following parks were designated as parks where admission-based events may be permitted. I think you all know what they are. Civic Center Park, City Park, Confluence Park, Skyline Park, Central Park, Parkfield Park, Ruby Hill Park. Overland Park is not among them. The rules also state that an ABA shall be no more than 4 days, including setup and tear down. An ABA shall not allow public attendance to exceed 7,500 persons. No ABA shall occupy more than 20% of a contiguous area in a given park. So we recommend and respect those rules and those agreements, and that you say no to this contract based on that. We further recommend the Denver City Council take back oversight and regulation of Denver's parks. Parks are public. Public used to mean public. Public now seems to mean private. Maybe I haven't caught up with the language change. I'm not a lexicologist. But I think we need to think about putting the public back in parks, and also to respect small, unique neighborhoods and not inundate them with massive numbers of people. And we don't have the infrastructure to support this. And while I think the festival may be a terrific idea, it's the absolute wrong venue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Orr. Andrew Gioff.
Hello, Council. Thank you for having me here. My name is Andrew Gayhoff. I live on the 2200 block of Acoma, just a few blocks from the festival. I've been to most of the meetings that have pertained to this event. It's really been a wonderful experience. Everybody that has been involved with it has really spent their due diligence, making sure that everybody's best interest has been heard. That includes the folks from Superfly, as well as the City Council, as well as the neighbors. I'm excited for the opportunity. You know, it's a wonderful thing to have this type of cultural event in the city. It's something that I don't think Denver necessarily has right now. I'm also excited to use the park as a non-golfer. You know, I'm not necessarily out there using that, even though it's amenity just blocks from my house. And I really think that this festival can be a beacon of the cultural fabric of the city. I think that it's a really awesome opportunity, and I very much trust that so much thought has gone into this that it is a really good opportunity for the city. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gioff. Joanne Weiss. Sorry about that.
Hi, I definitely shaved off a few years in purgatory by sitting in these pews for so long.
Jeez.
My name is Joanne Weiss. I live at 540 West Jewel Avenue, a few feet from the golf course. From the get-go, we've been told that this is a done deal. So my statement tonight, and I still feel that way, I feel overpowered by that, but I have a statement to make that, just for the record, just to get it out there. When lobbyists, corporate profiteers, and city government officials gang up on our neighborhoods to fill their coffers and advance their careers, it can make a person feel a little crazy. Throughout this process, our collective voices have been drowned out by a tsunami of hype and propaganda. Few questions have been adequately answered, and legal issues hardly addressed. For some of us, the long game is clear. Degrade the park, displace the people, and develop the land for the greater good. This aggressive behavior has at times left us feeling hopeless. The opposite of hope is empowerment. As a newly registered neighborhood organization born on July 4th, 2017, the Neighbors of Overland North is committed to the struggles of all neighborhoods under attack and parks and open spaces put up for lease to the highest bidder. This festival is a juggernaut that does not fit the fragile infrastructure of our historic neighborhood. And it will dramatically alter the quality of our lives and our sense of community. We agree with the recommendation of the Inter-Neighborhood Coalition, INC, Parks Committee, that the city should create a permanent festival site to accommodate an event of this magnitude. Please vote no on the Superfly contract. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Terry Pasquale. Missed the L there.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of council. My name is Terry Pasqua, and I live on Jewel Avenue, from right across the street from Overland Golf Course with my husband, Paul Bedore. We are not golfers, although we have buckets of golf balls that are accumulating in our yard. And since we're not golfers, we do not get to benefit from this open space for most of the year and feel that it's actually underutilized as a public park and space. I've lived in the neighborhood for 9 years, and I'm part of the neighborhood association, and I am for the music festival. Councilman Clark and David Ehrlich have been very open and honest with all their communication in various public meetings regarding the plans and processes related to the festival and the impact on the neighborhood. As credible issues have been brought up, the promoters have listened and have included them into published guidelines which will be implemented through the final planning stages. The promoters have been very open and willing to listen and to work with us, and we will continue to work with them so that any unforeseen issues that come up in the first few years are evaluated and are appropriately addressed. I have total confidence that this will be a good thing for all parties involved, the golf course, the neighborhood, and the city at large. With Denver's growing and changing demographics, our parks need to be able to provide a variety of types of usage, not just golf, which only caters to a small percentage of the population. A music festival makes perfect sense in that it would allow enjoyment of this park, if only for a few days of the year, to a much larger and diverse population. And the direct impact to Overland neighborhood is only 3 days. What better way to celebrate our neighborhood in the city of Denver, but with a musical cultural festival in a natural urban setting where it provides a venue for local artists. The increased traffic into the local area before, during, and after the festival would bring a boost to the local economy and businesses along the developing South Broadway corridor. My husband often asks me, but how do you really feel? I'm not a public speaker, but I am a lover of live music and dance, and I love my neighborhood. The good vibes I felt from attending the concerts at Levitt Pavilion last week still linger, and I'm looking forward to more live music in the hood. I'm really excited to see how this all comes together, and especially to watch out my front window as the construction of the main stage unfolds. Council members, we want this music festival. We want this for the betterment of the golf course, the surrounding neighborhoods, our local businesses, and the city of Denver. Let's bring more good vibrations into the city. The amount of love and joy coming out of this would be exhilarating. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pasquale. All right. Thank you for those who came up. I'm going to call up the next 5. Lori Paulson, Paul Bedore, Phil Hainline, Jack Unruh, and I'll have to call one more, Kathy Duggan. Okay, Lori Paulson, you are up first. You have 3 minutes.
That's me. I'm Lori K. Paulson. I live at 520 West Jewel Avenue. And I am not for the destruction of the golf course. You can't replace what you have. All these people, excuse me, whether it be 30,000, 80,000, over 3 days, will not only destroy the wildlife, the habitat, the environment. What it's going to do is it's going to kill people. And your words have the power of life and death. There are fragile elderly people, disabled people, people on a fixed income, people that are dying, end of life care. Sure, you can turn down the volume. Sure, you can try to put it further down the street, but we live across the street. There are people that are dying, and the reverberations, or whatever your technical term is, for the boom boom of the bass, you can't do anything about it. And people will feel this. People with emphysema. I've been in nursing for many years. I had to retire because my back's messed up and my body's messed up. But I wouldn't trade a day of it because I care about people. And I made a difference in their lives. That's a life-enhancing moment. You can't get that. I've been to concerts, nothing. It's just a couple days, I'm bored, something else. A concert is not a life-enhancing moment, but taking care of your people in your neighborhood, treating them kindly, with respect, helping them when you see they're struggling. This is the kind of people we have. This is our neighborhood. Concerts are come and go. After a couple of years, it won't be new anymore. And what do you got left? People on a fixed income that can't afford to move for a few days. How do we leave our property? We've got to what? We can't replace it. How about, can you replace my husband's life as he struggles to breathe? Try holding your breath. Take a deep dive and hold your breath until you can't. And you try to take in air, but you can't. It isn't possible. Your lungs can't do it. And that's a lot of these people are living moment to moment, just worried about, how am I going to breathe? Am I going to breathe? That's your whole day. That's your whole night. This concert, the noise, the chaos, the uncertainty of what's going to happen to them and their yards, their homes. This is an abomination. It's so wrong on so many levels. And I ask you to take this into consideration. What do we do with people who are dying and who this will affect?
Ms. Paulson, your time is up. Thank you. Paul Bador.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the council. My name is Paul Bador. I lived on West Jewel Avenue with my wife Terry, directly across Overland Golf Course. We are both enthusiastic supporters of this music festival. I'm also a dreamer, and personally, I would like to believe that this is already a done deal, because I see you all as our change agent, not just for our common good, but also for our greater good. I also believe in magic, and Councilman Clark, I think you would agree that Thursday and Friday night there was magic on Ruby Hill at the first two concerts at the Levitt Pavilion. And to me, Levitt Pavilion is already becoming a good testament of what's possible with the right intentions. Imagine if Superfly could also use a new Levitt Pavilion during their events. Wouldn't that enhance all the magic? Council members, I believe that in the years to come, you will look back with great pride that you were so forward-looking and also a dreamer by your support of this festival. I believe that through the years after years success of this festival, you will personally observe Overland Golf Course being uplifted by improvements that this music festival helped to fund. That you will observe our nearby neighborhoods and businesses also being more and more uplifted, as well as our great city of Denver is being uplifted in its irresistible attraction to so many who want to live here. I even believe that most who are now against it will also come around later to support it. I believe that eventually we can build a bridge between all of us, the enthusiastic supporters, and all those who are passionately against it. We do want them back in our fold. As we understand it, there's a pending contract is now on the table, and in the months to come, it will be expanded through the additional of several what I call operational plans, such as parking, security, and transportation. I believe that our for and against neighbors can, in good faith, participate together in a related advisory boards committed to the year-to-year improvements of these operational plans. Most of the fears and concerns can be mitigated. Clearly, there will be kinks to work out. Respectfully, I'm asking this council to vote unanimously for this event, and I'm also taking this opportunity to publicly invite the opposition to join in and work with us. Let's do this. Let's have more music. Let's celebrate, and let's dance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bador. Phil Hainline?
Let's see. My name is Phil Hainline, Denver resident and former sound engineer. I love music, I love parks, but it's sad to see one sacrificed for the other. I'm sure you've seen those big stacks of concert speakers. I'm talking the really big ones, okay? Now imagine somehow I snuck one of those stacks in here past your good security sitting there. Or maybe I'm wealthy enough to drive a flatbed trailer all around here with a full 20,000 watt concert PA on it, okay? You would have me arrested, and appropriately so, because you, the government, rightly consider the volume from that size PA inappropriate. Inappropriate for a minute, let alone 3 days. You and the good folks in the surrounding buildings want to conduct business. But what about the homeowners near Overland Park? What do they want to conduct? Why did they buy a modest home in a very modest neighborhood? This is money making in a public park. $200 to $300 tickets. The audience, mostly white. A scheme by the affluent for the young and affluent. Simply limited access commerce in a public park. Everybody but the neighbors is getting a cut. Appropriate? In New York City, when they permit theater and music in a park, almost all the tickets are free. A public space for the public. Imagine that. Now, surrounding Denver, there are dozens of would-be Max Yasgurs, remember, Woodstock farmer, willing to rent their farms for much, much less. So why did the promoters fly some council members around the country, wine and dine them? Because leveraging the grass and trees of Overland Park will result in greater profits. Leveraging the grass and trees, good for business. Funny thing, I know in your hearts, most of you think this is wrong, inappropriate, but the money's too good. Principle versus money? This administration, not a chance. These Overland neighbors are simply not affluent enough to afford government protection. Imagine if the Overland neighbors had the same resources as, say, the good folks living on 7th Avenue. Imagine that. We wouldn't even be meeting here. This would have been over, not even happening. I wish I had time to invoke Warren Zevon, send lawyers, guns, and money. Sadly, I have no confidence that you, City Council, will do the right thing. Your votes have been counted, the press release already written. This hearing is just public theater, and you're the cast performing. Well, at least you're making union scale, and the tickets were free. Know this, with your vote, you'll be reducing the public in public space and probably never be able to watch It's a Wonderful Life quite the same way again.
Thank you, Mr. Hainline. Jack Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. I'm Jack Unruh. I live 4 blocks south of the park and have done so for 37 years. And the last time that you saw some of us here who are for the festival was the meeting before Thanksgiving when, through Councilman Clark, we brought the proclamation of Denver as a compassionate city to you. I mention that because we really do respect and love and honor the people who are extremely opposed to the park. I, on the other hand, am not. And I think the best way I can support that position is to talk to Councilman Cashman's point, does it make the neighborhood better? I believe it will, and not just by bringing notoriety and recognition and visibility to the neighborhood, but in the same way that the Botanic Gardens concert makes the Botanic Gardens neighborhood better, all the events in Civic Center Park make the Golden Triangle a better neighborhood, the Greek Festival makes Hilltop a better neighborhood. We make it a better neighborhood by hosting and honoring the desires and the good times that will come out of this, not only for the attendees, but also for the musicians who will be well paid, the artists who will participate, the concessionaires who will be there. Change is hard, It's uncomfortable, but it's the way to the new normal. And in that sense, since it's always happening, it is fair. And when we make our neighborhood a host so that things are better for others, that makes us better neighbors to others. The mixing that will take place at the very diverse audience, with a very diverse audience in terms of families, ages, ethnicities, music preferences, and so on, is what Denver needs to do. And so I hope that you will resoundingly and unanimously vote yes in favor of the contract.
Thank you, Ms. Unruh. Okay, Kathy Duggan. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Hi, I'm Kathy Dugan, and I live at, it's okay,
Sorry
other
about
half
that.
the family's Duggan. So I live at 1947 South Elati Street. I'm a half a block from the proposed music festival. I say proposed kind of tongue-in-cheek because, quite frankly, as we've been reading in the paper and hearing, it's pretty much a done deal. And my belief is that it's been a done deal since the city was first approached. That said, I want you to keep in mind, I ask that you keep in mind when you vote, we are human beings, we're not collateral damage. Most of the people in our neighborhood cannot afford to go to this festival. And quite frankly, I think it's a little bit elitist to have an event in a neighborhood where people can't go to it. We can't afford it. I can't afford it. The other thing that I would like to ask you to do as you consider this is to think about, would you want this in your neighborhood? Would you want 70 to 80,000 people for 3 days and 3 nights? And that's just the festival time. That's not the setup and the tear down. But would you want them in your side, back, or front yard? Would you want to open your window in the most beautiful time of the year, in my opinion, fall, and hear music that, you know, I love music, quite frankly. I have musicians in my family. I have a nephew who plays in festivals all over the place. I don't want to hear it all day, all night. I can hear the baseball games going on. I love it. It's an hour long. So my question to you, as you think about this, think about, would you want to, for 3 days and 3 nights, would you want to be subjected to music all day, all night? 70 to 80,000 people in your backyard, your side yard, your front yard. People you don't know. And yes, we can always leave. We certainly can leave. We could move out for the weekend. I don't want anybody telling me when I have to leave, especially when I have 70 to 80,000 people in my yard that I don't know. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Dugan. All right. I'm going to call the next 5. Please come to the front bench. Mara Owen, Diane Theo, Justin Bressler. I think he's gone. Renee Montoya. And one more, Dan Erickson. Mara Owen, you're first.
Hi, City Councilwoman, City Councilmen, thanks very much for having us here tonight. My name is Mara Owen, and I would first like to say thank you to everyone here on both sides. We really do, to make a good neighborhood, need both sides of every issue, and I think that the contract has been made better from every input on every side. And so I just wanted to say thank you, especially with how late this is going, for this shared passion. I am the president of the Overland Park Neighborhood Association, and I'm here representing my personal opinions. I have lived in Denver my whole life, and I've been in the Overland Park neighborhood, living at Broadway and Evans since 2011. I'm personally a strong supporter of the festival. Just one of the many reasons I'm a supporter is that this festival will keep parkland in our neighborhood solvent into the future and allow the golf course to cover critical and much deferred infrastructure improvements. This ensures a lasting park space in our neighborhood that is well kept and not in danger of being closed, developed, or even run into the ground. This piece of land is a huge asset to both our neighborhood and to the city, with the amount of people moving to Denver and needing space to recreate in an increasingly dense urban area. Spaces like this are precious and need to be both utilized and maintained. Currently, the golf course is a for-profit enterprise and not simply a park free to the public. It charges a fee for using the course and tries to cover those expenses using the revenue. They regularly host public events, such as the demo night and beer liquor garden that they did on July 21st. And they are available to host tournaments and special events. In my opinion, this is a good thing. And the Superfly Festival is simply a continuation of this existing use. Having a diversified income for any business is much more fiscally responsible and can bring more people into the space who may not be interested only in golf. The festival also helps to incentivize and fund improvements in the neighborhood and the wider city of Denver. It directly contributes $1 per ticket to a community fund that can help make our neighborhood and the surrounding community a better place. To put all this into perspective, I've attended quite a few of the meetings for the upcoming general obligation bond, and I was so surprised by the list of worthwhile projects on the capital improvements list, as well as the amount of deferred maintenance in our city. Watching people choose which projects to fund and not fund was painful, when all of them are incredibly important, and some of them far overdue. This festival is an opportunity to increase funding for some projects, perhaps like these, without any type of tax on already burdened citizens. It would be a shame to ignore this opportunity after having to cut so many projects off of the bond. In addition to all of that, it's important to keep in mind that we're talking about a music festival, an inclusive, all-ages music festival where people come together to celebrate the cultural achievements of our society. Music is something we have already seen as a huge community asset in the new Levitt Pavilion and has the same potential as a catalyst here. This festival can build on and encourage the music identity that is already present and growing in our neighborhood. And with events and venues such as the new Levitt Pavilion, the Underground Music Showcase, Swallow Hill, Herman's Hideaway, and the upcoming Colorado Public Radio headquarters on Ruby Hill, the festival has this opportunity to strengthen the existing sense of identity. Thank you.
Right on time. All right. Thank you, Ms. Owen. All right. Diane Thiel.
Good night, council people and Mr. President. My name is Diane Thiel. I live in Denver. Our administration continues to want to use our public parks and facilities for private gain. People have to constantly come down here, right here, and say no. We're here again to say no. Overland Park residents already have to live with many concerts at Ruby Hill Park. They have to put up with not just the noise of the concert, but also have to hear the equipment testing and the band rehearsals. Isn't that enough to put on the Overland Park neighborhood? I would not like to have a 3-day festival in my neighborhood. Not once, and not certainly every year for 5 years. If you want this festival in your neighborhoods, I encourage you to call this company tomorrow and set it up. I think you might not get reelected if you do that, but I don't think you should put it in the Overland Park golf course. Finally, I'm speaking up for the wildlife that live in or travel through the river corridor or hunt for food on the golf course. They do not want this festival either. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thiel. All right, Justin Bristler.
Good evening. President Brooks, City Council, thank you for having us. My name is Justin Bressler, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Business Development for Visit Denver. We are the Convention and Visitors Bureau for the metro area. We're a 108-year-old nonprofit organization whose mission is to bring conventions and leisure visitors to Denver for the economic benefit of the city, community, and our partners. We enthusiastically support bringing the multi-day music festival to Denver beginning in 2019 at Overland Park. A festival of this scale provides significant benefits to residents and visitors alike, which is why our organization is proud to be a sponsor. We're currently progressing the Denver Tourism Roadmap as a 10-year strategic plan to increase the economic impact created by tourism and ensure our industry remains vibrant and competitive for years to come. Pursuing signature events and festivals like this that draw overnight visitors is the primary initiative in the Roadmap's visitor-driven events goal area. Music festivals are major economic drivers, and a festival like this creates both short-term and long-term economic impacts to both local and with both local and citywide benefits. In the short term, nearby businesses will see an immediate economic impact from the spending generated by locals and visitors who head to the festival. And in the long term, the entire city benefits by the extra taxes paid by visitors who come here, spend money, and then go home. As a matter of fact, Metro Denver households would pay more than $500 in annual taxes to receive the same benefits were it not for the $523 million in state and local taxes paid by visitors. Music festivals also help define the tourism brand of a city. Top tourism destinations have major music festivals from Austin to Seattle to San Francisco. And with our growing population and active residents, music plays a huge role in our brand. Over the course of the festival, we feel that Denver's brand would be elevated at the regional and national level, and also how it incorporates Denver's culinary arts and cultural experiences. So now we live in a time when most people are listening to music privately and in earbuds and on their phone. Live music is a way for people to connect with top artists and like-minded fans and communities up close and personal. We're committed to working closely with all stakeholders to ensure the festival is a unique and positive, welcoming experience for all attendees and Denver, and we urge the council to support the festival. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bressler. All right, Renee Montoya.
Hi, my name is Brianne Montoya. I lived in the neighborhood for 31 years, and I want my neighborhood to prosper, but not this fast and not in this way. So we want to keep contaminants out of our neighborhood, and that means like biles and toxins that you guys have taken. And also, prior to keep accountability, I would like to have you guys test the soil to make sure that all the shattuck and the radioactive waste that was buried 300 feet from there is actually not going to be coming up when all these people are coming through, peeing everywhere, making bile everywhere. All these uranium, radium, and thorium are going to be coming up from the ground if it hasn't been analyzed prior. So that's one thing I want, is soil samples done prior to exposing 60,000 people to this kind of atmosphere. On top of that, there's already squatters along the river. What are you guys going to do about that? Are you guys going to stop the whole area around it? Not only that, but fire hazards, okay? We need, part of zoning should be, you should have your fire person, the chief of the fire people there for making your zoning, because they know what's safe and what's not safe. So having people come in 3 avenues versus downtown Denver, which you could also look up on your Denver Parks and Rec, that September, those dates are free for the Civic Center. There's nothing going on there. So your Superfly thing could go on downtown where it's prepared to have that many people come in. There's actually bus systems and light rails and good avenues for people to not have dangerous. Building a bridge within before it's even put in is wrong. Saying that you're going to be making all these promises and having a lengthy list is not right. Saying all these promises prior to actually doing them is not right and is not part of my agenda, and I do not want to support this. I do not support the music festival. I am very, artistic, and I love creativity, but it needs to happen like in a accordance. Like right now, they have the music festival, and they're like testing it out up at the Ruby Hill. Your second event, you guys stated, and you barely know what the impact of it. Exponential growth. If you know anything about that, you guys saw the 420 event go from, I went there when I was like high school, 200 people. Now look at it. That's exponential growth. And so yeah, $200,000 ain't nothing. $200,000 ain't nothing to destroy a historical landmark. Not only that, but to go in there and allow kids to be along the river. They get so trashed. They're gonna go in there and make you guys forget about what you guys came and voted for. They're gonna be so drunk. I've seen it. I've seen these college students, they don't know their limits. And they throw themselves. They're gonna be right on the banks of the river, having you guys fish them out for days. So you guys could make this decision, but I do not want people coming into my neighborhood. And I've been to Mardi Gras. I've seen it. I've seen what people do and the lack of respect that they have for the environment. Our neighborhood is not set up like Mardi Gras, where we take all the way up the space, all the way up until the bare grounds. You guys, we have 9 feet that say that you guys have to have prior, as your lawn, you can't build on, because it's your guys', but we've got to maintain it, right? So that's the difference, is this area is not prepared. The safety is not taken care of. You guys haven't done any preparation in the sense of Shattuck, have you? And I think exposing 60 to 80,000 people is very, very like important. I'm OSHA 30 certified, and I know the standards that you have to take in order to build. And so not only that, but like, you guys are gonna be like, you know, stomping in this.
Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Dan Erickson.
Good evening, Council President Brooks, member of council. My name is Dan Erickson. I live in Ruby Hill at 1390 South Canosa Court. Tonight I come forward in support of the proposed music festival at the Overland Golf Course because it will provide an opportunity to showcase Denver's culture through local art, music, food, to tens of thousands of people that will attend each year. I'm a fourth-generation Denver native. I grew up in South Denver. I am a fine artist. I've been working in the medium of painting portraits on street signs for the past 17 years. I recently had a piece of my work accepted into the permanent collection of the American Jazz Museum in Kansas City. I have been fortunate enough to show my work around the country, as well as been in a bunch of publications with my work. I've had gallery representation the past 7 years in New York, but Denver's my home, and I really enjoy sharing my work with the public through wall spaces around town like Dazzle Jazz or the Preservery, or through murals like the one I painted at Metro State Center for the Visual Arts. I'm also very excited to be providing the artwork for the green rooms at the new Levitt Pavilion in Ruby Hill, and I consider it a huge privilege and honor to be working on any creative projects in my neighborhood. As an artist, I've appreciated the fact that Superfly reached out to me to ensure there is a connection between the local community showcased at the festival. This will provide an opportunity for the local artists to be connected with new audiences and to make the Denver Music Festival site reflect the amazing culture which this city has to offer. I look forward to working with the festival organizers and local artists on the details of this exciting plan in the coming months. In addition to its commitment to the arts, this festival excites me as a resident of Ruby Hill. Superfly has done a great job of reaching out to the neighborhood through extensive community outreach. They have been very responsive to the neighborhood concerns. But perhaps the most exciting aspect of the festival for me and my family is the community fund that will be financed by $1 of each ticket sold. That's $800,000 for Overland Park and Ruby Hill over the proposed 5 years. That will make my neighborhood a better place. I thank you again for your time and urge you to vote yes on supporting the Superfly Festival.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Okay, we're going to call the next 5. I assume some of these people are not here. Bridget Walsh, David Warner, okay, Daniel Lowenstein, David Reichter, okay, I guess they're, and Marilyn Barella. Okay, David Warner, you're first.
Good evening, Mr. President, fellow council members. I feel your pain. I am also a council member in another city, and if I was giving this speech now, there'd be nobody here. I don't know how you guys do it. I'm not necessarily opposed to this, although for one, I think there are better venues. I think Ruby Hill might be better. It's at least 20 acres larger than the area in Golden Gate Park, where the Outside Lands Festival is being held. I also feel this is a subtle attempt, maybe not right away, but an attempt to close Overland down. There's been talk about this before. This could be a first step. I'm going to take a different approach. I'm not going to try to appeal to anybody's emotions or anything. I'm going off what I read in the paper and what Superfly's website says. I'm a finance person. I have not read your contract, so if I state something wrong, you'll have to correct me. If we're going to sign a long-term deal, I think it has to be done right. I don't know if any of you remember the Grand Prix in '89 and '90. Denver was on the hook for about $1 million, and that contract was done right too. So if I can make one comment, all I want to discuss is, all I'm going to do right now is compare revenues from the San Francisco Festival to what we're going to get. In 2014, this is off their website, they generated for the San Francisco Parks and Rec District about $2.5 million for their event. The attendance was around 200,000 people for the 3 days. That comes to $12.53 per person that went back to the rec district. This is based on all their figures, the 11% gross, all their different fees. What we are being offered is $9.89 per ticket. This is based off an attendance of 120,000 based on the same, I calculated $93 average ticket price. I think we need a better deal than that. This is also based on everything that was in the paper, the rent, all the different funds going to the enterprise fund, the golfer discount, the seat tax at our 10%. The one thing that I think you guys are missing is I guess you calculated the $200,000 rent as something that would supplant the lost revenues. Remember, the golf course has the golf course, the driving range, the restaurant, the pro shop. I think, so you're not considering this lost revenue, and you're also not considering the fact that you're cleaning up 130 acres compared to 69. Golden Gate Park has minimal lost revenue, but we do. What I recommend in the last 6 seconds is I think you're too low. You need to read this contract. You need to add at least a 3% ticket fee to give back to the golf course and to give back to people in the neighborhood.
Mr. Warner,
That's
your
all.
time is up. Thank you. All right. Mr. Daniel Lowenstein.
Hello. Well, my father is probably best or very fondly remembered for doing the Festival Caravan program in the parks of Denver. Well, this was a really organic process where he worked with the neighborhoods, and the shows that he developed were of, by, and for the community. And he, in the process of working with various neighborhoods to see if they'd like shows in the parks, some neighborhoods would opt for shows in the parks and some wouldn't, and he would respect that. And my father, he considered the public parks public, and so these shows were free for everyone. And this was in the 70s and 80s, and well, he was never too fond or involved in things where the public areas were taken over for private use, and I feel that way too. I think that public land should be for the public, and private should seek another venue, and that's what I say. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Lowenstein. David Richter.
Good evening, Mr. President, Council. Thanks for having us here tonight. My name is David Richter. I live at 252 Pennsylvania Street. I'm Councilman Clark's representative on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. PRAB has been updated pretty much every month, I would say, maybe more often in and out of meetings, since the promoter first brought this proposal to the city sometime, I guess, last fall or late last summer, I'm not sure much. As a body, we haven't made any specific recommendations on this proposal, but as keeper of the minutes, and I'm the secretary, I can tell you that the board has generally made some positive comments about what we have heard. There have clearly been some members of PRAB that have had some concerns about the usual issues related with a big festival like infrastructure, traffic, perhaps safety. I personally have attended a number of community meetings, and participated in the city survey, seen the results of that and the metrics during the process. And it seems to me overall that the promoter's intentions, aside from his contractual obligations, will mitigate pretty much all reasonable concerns. It won't be perfect. I think Happy Haynes alluded to that herself. But at PRAB, let me just leave you this thought. Pretty much every month, we're confronted with a common theme. It's how can we make a park more versatile, accommodate new users, activate a space in a unique and purposeful way. I think this proposal's worth the effort. And I think it has tangible and intangible rewards for both the city, the golf community, and yes, believe it or not, I think ultimately even the local neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richter. All right, Marilyn Barella.
Good evening. Thank you for having this courtesy hearing. My name is Marilyn Barella, and I live at 1420 South Osage Street. I'm a native of Denver and have lived just across Florida next to Ruby Hill Park for 50 years. We were told by David Ehrlich and Jolan Clark that if the neighborhood did not want Superfly on Overland Golf Course, then Superfly would find another venue. The majority votes of both the Overland neighborhood and mine are against Superfly on Overland. Don't betray our trust. Find another venue for Superfly as promised. This contract is all speculation, a big guess about something that is not known, a risky business assumption. Upfront, taxpayers are supposed to pick up the tab for police, fire department, and trash services. This is not what we were initially told. Again, this is speculated to be $200,000, a big guess. I contend it will far exceed that amount. Denver's man-hours of time already spent on planning this proposal must have added up to be an enormous expense to the taxpayers of Denver. If approved, Denver's future man-hours of planning costs will be even greater, shocking, I suspect, to the citizens of Denver. If you approve this contract, you are going to use taxpayers' money in defiance of the vote against it. Superfly on Overland is precedent-setting. This contract needs to be held in the proper venue, not on Overland. Don't stand behind David Ehrlich, whose only reason not to have it in the proper venue is because they don't want to be on concrete. Don't betray the golfing community, the neighborhoods, the environment, wildlife, and all the citizens of Denver. Denver's government has lost its credibility. Ask any citizen of Denver, or even Denver's employees, about the collaborative process that Denver espouses. They will tell you it's a big joke. Denver's government does not represent the citizens of Denver. There's hatred and division in the city of Denver that I've never seen before, much of it caused by the proposals of Denver's government. I'm here to ask you to vote no to the Superfly contract. Stand up and protect Denver's priceless parkland and golf courses. Stand up for the citizens of Denver. Don't stand up for the private corporate profit interests of Superfly. Restore your credibility and vote no to the Superfly contract. Remember, we already have 50 concerts each summer at the Levin Pavilion. Please have some consideration for our neighborhoods. Keep Superfly off of Overland. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Barella. We are at an hour, and there are 4 more speakers, and if it's okay with the council, I'd like to keep it going. Jill and Clark is praying. Okay. Ronnie Crawford, please come to the front. Ronnie Crawford, Leanne Montoya, J.C. Helmstetter. Did I get that right? And Margaret Runkus. And actually, I didn't pause it when I was calling people, so you guys do have a little bit more time. Okay. Ronnie Crawford, you're up.
Howdy, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Thank you for enduring all of this. It's late night. Everybody's tired. What I want to speak to is the Overland Park neighborhood. Ronnie Crawford, 2149 South Fox Street, 17-year resident of Overland Park. I am vice president of the Overland Park Neighborhood Association. I want to approach something a little different here, that our neighborhood is called Rhizo. Everybody knows Rhino because they got that rhinoceros logo, and everybody knows that, all that's going on up there. We're Rhizo. We're at the beginning. So for River South, the river is a main amenity of our neighborhood. We are the last neighborhood in Denver on the river, and it is such a great amenity. On July 2nd, I led a tube and rafting trip down the South Platte. We started at Mineral and got out at Grant Frontier. 19 tubes. It's a great river. It's a great thing to see, and everything's different from the river. I work with a couple of groups, Denver Trout Unlimited, Project Healing Waters, which gets veterans back to fishing. It is a great amenity. I would like to see this concert happen. I am for the concert, absolutely for it. This will bring a lot of people to see one of Denver's overlooked and greatest amenities, which is the Denver South Platte. My colleagues at Denver Trout Unlimited call it from Chatfield to Commerce City. It's more than Denver, but the Platte starts way up in the mountains, so that's Denver South Platte. It's a great thing. A lot of cities have their river walks and things located around their river. I would like to see that happen. I think that if we get 30,000 people, 100,000 people to see that river that has been reconstructed, it is reconstructed in the river from Grant Frontier to almost to the Mississippi Bridge in water, and our neighborhood is a city of parks with Pasquinel's, Grant Frontier, Overland Park, Overland Pond Park. There's a lot to see there. The whole riparian area has been rebuilt. All those parks are pretty brand new, a couple years old, and the river's looking good. I fished last night at the bridge at Grant Frontier, caught a 16-inch rainbow and an 18-inch rainbow. The fish are in there. I want to make that river a place where people come. It's a destination because it's a wonderful place that's right in our city. And I want our visitors for the concert to come down there. I'm not talking about drunk college students. There will be game wardens, river rangers, everybody watching all that. I want people to see the beauty of our river and the beauty of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Mr. Crawford, thank you. River South. All right. You heard it here. Heard it first here. All right. Leanne Montoya. 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Leanne Montoya, and I live at 700 West Asbury. I bought my house 32 years ago, and I've raised 6 kids and 9 grandchildren in that home. And my kids have gone up and down that neighborhood, know everybody there. They've gone to the park, down to every night we do our nightly walk on the golf course. So there are uses for it if people really want to go out there and see what uses there are besides putting a music festival in there. One of the reasons why I'm against the music festival is because we are a 4x2 block area. That's all it is. And if you're going to have 60 to 80,000 people in that neighborhood and say they're going to come in on the Florida side, they're still going to overflow into our side. They're going to overflow into the park, and they're going to overflow into the river. We already have squatters there already up and down the Platte, which from what I heard is illegal, but they're still all out there living out there. And the crime rate has gone up because of that. Most recently, we had an incident where I couldn't even go into my neighborhood, a 4x2 block area with 3 entrances. I couldn't get in. The police kept it blocked off because they were searching for someone that ran away from the cops. This was like a week ago. So that's just a little bit of the crime. You start bringing in all these people in here, don't think they're just going to be there for 3 days. If you've got people coming in from all over the country to see this music festival, they're going to be sitting up and up along the river and up on Ruby Hill and all around the neighborhood for at least a week before. And so it's going to cause a lot of problems. There's going to be people disrespecting our property. There's people that we don't know going in and out of our neighborhood that you keep promising that they're not going to come in. I don't understand how you think they're going to come over that bridge, that rickety bridge over Santa Fe, and not come through our neighborhood, not come through our streets to get to the golf course. I don't know how else you guys are planning, or they're planning to bring them through if they're coming through Florida. I think also one of the same things too is that a lot of people are against it just besides us. The people that matter are us people in that 4x2 neighborhood, because we're the ones that are going to have the direct effect from it. Not anybody else, not any of you guys, not any of you guys. Only us people that live in that 4x2 block area are going to feel the direct effect for 3 days, with music pounding and people walking. Even the people there, 60 to 80,000, is going to make more noise than the music, and it's going to be really rough on us. And who's going to take care of any property damage? Is that in the contract? You're going to take care of property damage for us? I'd like to see that. And I am totally against this.
Thank you, Ms. Montoya. All right, J.C. Helmstetter.
Thank you. Good evening, President Brooks and the members of Denver City Council. My name is J.C. Helmstetter. I own both residential and commercial property in the Overland neighborhood. Currently, I'm serving my second term as the president of the local maintenance district on Broadway. As well, I'm one of the board members that should, in a hopefully a very soon time, be bringing to this board a potential business improvement district petition. So I'm speaking firsthand for the businesses. And I want to say that the business owners along Broadway haven't done all the research to know all the numbers. However, they're very eager. We have met with David Ehrlich and Liz Adams and have engaged in what the businesses believe is going to be very beneficial for them. For example, the local businesses are able to have presentation at the concerts, which means you can go to the beer tent and get a local brew from Declaration Brewing, which is located on South Delaware, or go to the food tent and get some delicious chicken from Post Chicken. I believe the Superfly is very invested in our community. It's our ideas, and our ideas because they want to showcase the amazing culture that we have in our neighborhood. The businesses in Overland area are a diverse and unique bunch, but they're united in support of this festival. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm really hungry for some chicken, so thanks for mentioning that. All right, last but not least, Margaret Rundix.
Somebody left their glasses. Anyway, my name is Margaret Rundix. I live in West Platte Park. I'm at 1625 South Downing Street. I imagine a lot of concert goers will be walking from Pearl Street and Downing on down to the concert. This is a big deal. It's been promoted for a long time. The first time I heard about it was through my grandson. He's 17. He's a golfer. And he talked to me about it, and I said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Well, I don't like it, but I think it's a done deal." And I said, "Really? This is a year away. No. I think that we have some voice in this matter." He said, "I don't think so." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, I've heard a lot of talk at Overland." And I said, "I see." He has a coach when he can afford him at Overland. He works at Overland. He's worked at Wellshire. At 17, as an East High School student, he has qualified on his own freshman, sophomore, junior year. He hasn't done it yet for his senior year because he's just going into his senior year, for state competitions, and done very well. His team didn't qualify. He was the only one who did. He's a very avid golfer. He's been all over the state. He's been on every municipal course in the city and in the state. He plays golf all the time. He dresses well. He speaks well. He has learned a lot about greeting people, meeting people, and he's learned how to handle himself. He's straight. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't use drugs. He's kind of a quiet guy. And he aspires to be on a college golf team. His mother promotes his golf. She's a single parent. And she gets him to tournaments. way over her budget, but she does. He's going to play in an international tournament at the end of the summer. He's disappointed in this, you bet. I followed him for 11 years on all these courses. I've watched him play. I've learned a lot about golf. I'm not a golfer. I've watched kids, girls, boys, all throughout the state playing golf. People say it's dead. It's not. It's elitist. It's not. I'll tell you one thing. Municipal courses give opportunity to boys like him, kids that don't have it otherwise. First Tee of Colorado sent him to Pebble Beach to play with the Walrus. I have no more time, but I'm telling you, it's special, so support it. It's a golf course. It's not a music venue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rundix. I want to say thank you to everyone who stayed this late and got in here. I implore you to stay for the questioning. And if you do have to leave, that you'd go back and watch this portion. I want to remind members of council we will not be doing comments this week because we've extended it to next week. We'll just be going through the question portion. Councilman Cashman.
Thank you, Mr. President, and yeah, thanks to all the Overland folks on both sides of the issue who stuck around. David, if you don't mind. A few questions, quick. What will the ticket cost be for this event?
So I'll defer to Rick generally. There'll be a one-day ticket and a three-day ticket, and there's also contractually a provision for a materially discounted ticket for the community.
Right.
In terms of the actual ticket price, I believe that hasn't been set yet.
Yeah, it hasn't been set yet, but likely somewhere in the...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
For the three-day tickets, somewhere in the 250 to 325-ish range. They'll be tiered. So the earlier you buy them, the cheaper they'll be.
Right.
And then there'll be a single-day ticket somewhere in the 85 to 95 range.
Really? So considerably cheaper than outside lands? Is that what you're envisioning?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly, the outside lands ticket price has matured as the festival has matured.
And so the same thing probably if you have a festival at Overland.
If it's successful and there's demand, that's likely.
Okay. Because being presented as a family-friendly event, and my experience is with these festivals, you got to be a fairly well-to-do family to take a couple of kids to the show. But thank you.
We will likely have a, free for 10 and under.
10 and under.
Yeah, that's typically with events like this nationally. It's typically what the pricing is. So it's likely we would do something similar here.
Because outside is 2 and under, right? Outside lands.
Yes, outside lands is different.
Okay. If Denver gets a long debated festival park at some point, is there any room in the contract for consideration of it moving? I know you have a lot of upfront costs in doing a festival like this.
Certainly always would be open-minded to what makes sense for the community and what makes sense if there's a suitable site at some point. We'd love to take a look at it.
Sure. As far as outside lands goes, how I'm not familiar with where it is in the park in San Francisco. So how far is it, say, from the main stage to the nearest homes? Is it similar as to what you got at Overland?
I would say maybe 100 yards, 200 yards, something like that.
So similar to what you have at Overland?
Yeah, there's on both edges of the space that we use in Golden Gate Park, and we use a rather large space. There are 4-lane roads basically on either side. And so it's right across those roads. But yes, at probably the nearest spot, something like that, a couple hundred yards.
Is there a max? I mean, I've heard 30 to 40,000 the first year, maybe building up to 80,000.
Have you looked at that site? And I'm guessing if you end up doing a show there, it's going to be very successful from an attendance standpoint. Do you have a maximum in mind? How high could it go?
I believe the maximum by the contract is 80,000.
Is that contractually?
80,000 a day, yeah.
Thank you. And the last thing is, I've kind of gotten lost in the numbers. How much net, maybe Fred, this would be for you, how much will Denver net out of a successful event?
Fred Weiss, Director of Finance for Parks and Rec. It obviously depends on the tickets.
Of course.
Tickets sold. But, I didn't bring my glasses. So it's between about $1.5 million and $2.5 million. Okay. Is the range, depending on the ticket sales.
Okay, thank you. That's all I've got, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Cashman. Councilman Espinoza?
How much would the full parking and transit plan that you're going to do cost you to do right now?
We have a lot of expertise in-house, so we don't really track that as a cost, but our outside consultant that we'd be bringing in, anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 is just a guess. As I said, we have a lot of experience with our internal team of how to devise these plans, and so we'll supplement that with a transportation and traffic engineer.
Okay. What's the difference between the crowd as it, if you've got a full 80,000, how long would that take for people to sort of go from 0 to 80? And then how fast is that sort of build up? And then how fast is what's the window for exit?
Yeah, so we layer the programming to make sure that there's a gradual ingress and gradual egress. So it usually happens over a 2 to 3 hour period that you have people coming in, and usually about a 2-hour period people leaving. It's never that you have the full amount of ticket buyers there at any one given time. People come and go. And so, we feel like we have really good experience in how to layer the programming to enable that kind of flow.
Do you know what the capacity is for an RTD light rail car?
Per car?
Yeah.
I don't personally.
It's 125 people.
We have a member of council that used to be on RTD.
Oh, yeah. Kevin, what's the capacity?
64 seating, a total of 125 at what we call crush load.
Well, no, so actually 125...
I would wait for the next train.
125 is standing. What is crush load?
125. That's 64 seated and the rest standing.
Okay.
So a 4-car train would have 500.
So you might have to clean up on this one as well. Well, not on this one, but the follow-up. So do you know what the capacity is of Mile High, the seating capacity there?
Mile High Stadium?
Yeah.
I don't personally.
It's 70. Kevin, do you want to take a...
About 76,000.
Exactly. Councilman Brooks wins that one. And then, do you know what the percentage is of that stadium capacity that takes the Broncos ride?
I'm not aware.
Anyone want to venture a guess on what that percentage is?
Just tell us, because that's kind of get
Kevin
late.
Flynn, it is between 10 and 14%. Thank you. I'm asking those questions because you guys in sort of, I won't go into comment, but my concerns at committee were overwhelmingly and wildly addressed. I heard some things tonight that give me a lot of pause again, and you've always heard my concerns about traffic and transit and stuff like that. I'm more and more sort of sitting here going, how does this work? And if it's really $25,000 to $50,000 to sort of figure this one out, or in the ballpark, which I think is sort of due diligence sort of costs, I think it's important that I see that. So just thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Espinoza. Councilwoman Ortega.
Thanks, Mr. President. My first question is about the hotline. I'm not sure who would address that, but what I want to know is who will manage it
And will the responses be in real time? Will there be a live person answering the phones? And if there are, real issues that need to be addressed, how is that being handled?
So there will be a 24-hour manned hotline, both for originally it was for the festival 3 days, and in the course of the public discussions over several weeks, we added for the build-up and build-out period as well. So
How many days in total?
So, well, the total rental period is 5 weeks. So the response time, I think, is a half an hour by contract. So we have to have a response within a half an hour during the concert, and within an hour, I believe, in the beginning and the end, and will be manned by a person the whole time. And that's by contract. So that's something that if we don't do.
So that's for 5 weeks during setup, the event itself, and then takedown?
It'll run the whole time.
Okay. Will there be any fireworks as part of the event at all?
I think it's not, it's not anticipated at this point. And I think, when we put together the programming slate, we'll work with the city on that and both our security plan, but that's not anticipated currently.
Okay. No. The reason I'm asking is because, in the past when Barry Fay used to do concerts that had fireworks at the end at Mile High Stadium, he would actually pay the cost of having the animal control people come out because people's dogs would, jump through fences and, they were just roaming the neighborhood, and they would help pick them up and try to get them connected back, and there was a hotline where they could connect people to it and whatnot. Is that something you all have talked about with the neighborhoods? Is that something you're willing to do?
Well, I think the issue, as Rick said, is there's a series of acts that go, and the final act has to end by 10 o'clock, and there's no intention to keep people on the event space any longer than that. Right. So I think it's unlikely we would do anything like that. But we've talked to we can't move forward without the security plan, the ingress egress plan. All of those plans will anticipate that issue, and we can't move forward with the festival unless those plans are approved by the city.
I would suspect that to a large degree it would restrict part of your seating area and all of that because you have to section off an entire area. Yeah. And, if it's drier, as we've had hotter days, the likelihood for a fire or something, I think are real. And so I would advise against it, sure. But, so I just wanted to ask about that. I want to ask the city attorney what the, if there are penalties built into the contract for cancellation, if things just totally go awry and we decide that we don't want to continue it into the future. I know when we did the Grand Prix, the anticipation was we would do it for the full, I think it was 3 years. But I think we ended up only doing it for 1 or 2 of the full years of that time frame. So are there penalties for us not continuing to move forward for the full 5 years of this proposed contract?
Deanne Durfee, City Attorney's Office. We have provisions, a default clause in the contract that requires us to give notice and a right to cure of any defaults that have occurred. The city would have the right to terminate the contract for a substantial breach, so we would have to document that, and they would have to give them a right to cure it to see if we could resolve the issue.
And so the right to cure, that assumes that the next year they're going to cure the problems that happened this year, or they have to cure them day 1 before day 2 and day 3 continue? Help me understand what that means.
Obviously, it would depend on the type of breach that we were talking about.
Okay. All right. So I think I don't have any other questions right at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ortega. Councilman Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remember the Denver Grand Prix, Councilwoman. You were on the council at the time. They had a 5-year contract,
that's right.
And after the first year, they expected to lose about $500,000. They lost $5 million, and they wanted out the next year, and they went bankrupt after the second. I just want to mention that I think Bill Daniels took it on himself to write a check to cover all those losses, and God bless him. This kind of reminds me of that. In the presentation to the committee that I saw after I was out that week, but I went back and looked at it, either Happy or Fred can address this. $200,000 is what will be paid to us for each year's rent of the golf course? Is that?
Yes, that's correct.
As,
Yes.
okay. I just want to wait till you get to the mic.
Okay, thanks.
But then it says that we will we will credit them with $200,000.
That's correct.
So are they getting it for zero?
Well, there's many other revenue streams coming to the city.
Okay.
There's obviously the 10% seat tax.
Right.
There's $2 per ticket.
Mm-hmm.
There's $90,000 for a landscape position at Overland.
Right.
So, you know, we looked at it and the promoters looked at it as a package.
Okay.
And so the $200,000 of waived expenses is part of the package.
So if we're going to credit them with $200,000, why are we charging them $200,000? Are they going to give us a check and we just give it back?
$200,000 goes to golf.
Right.
And since it's an enterprise fund, there's the issue of splitting money. So it's $200,000 going to golf.
Now, the DRMC, the Denver Revised Municipal Code, requires that anybody who has an event in a city park that will have more than 25 participants, and I assume we'll have at least that many, the concessionaire is required to deposit with the city the full cost of what we expect to be any city expenditures for that permitted event. Do you have an estimate of what the city, first of all, I question whether if we credit them with it, whether we're actually abiding by the code. But do we have an estimate of what we think we will have to spend to support the city services to this event? How much will that cost? I imagine it could be more than $200,000.
Anything that's in addition to that $200,000 will be paid by the promoter.
Do we know what that is?
We don't anticipate there to be very much more. Most of it's with outside contracts.
Okay.
And they've committed to reimbursing our expenses in terms of rangers, golf maintenance staff. So whatever we need to support and monitor them, they will reimburse us.
When will we know that? Because according to the code, the city code says that you can't give them the permit, or Happy can't give them the permit until they've deposited that in advance.
Yeah, this is by contract. I mean, I would defer to the city attorney's office.
Okay.
The DRMC that you're referencing, I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
And I believe the terms of the contract supersede that.
The city code? I hope not.
I don't know if that's the right words, but by
Okay.
contract, the terms are.
No, Councilman Berflin, I'll have to take a look at the provision that
Okay.
you're referring to in the
It's
DRMC.
39-73.
Okay, we'll take
Thanks.
a look at that.
All right. Mr. Pratt, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilman Flynn. Councilman Espinoza, you are back up.
Yeah, is there any, and forgive me for not looking at this, is there any provision for neighborhood cleanup afterwards, and how far does that extend?
So yes, the contract has provisions for overnight cleanup during the festival and at the end. The actual dimensions of that area have yet to be determined, but we will determine that for the promoters. Okay. We will define that area.
As somebody who lives next to the stadium, what you get a lot is people leaving the stadium and either just dumping the things out of their car and leaving them on the street, or people getting Uber rides and stuff like that in the neighborhood, and again, just leaving whatever they don't want to pack with them. So
yes, so that is a requirement. Multiple sweeps through the neighborhood overnight.
Awesome.
Is part of the contract.
And then I don't know if this is Happy or the city attorney, but can somebody obtain a First Amendment permit to do something like the Women's March in Overland Golf Course?
So in terms of getting a General Assembly, a right to assemble permit inside one of the parks, the forms that we usually have for First Amendment protected activity would be what are called traditional public forums, usually in a park or within a street, and we have, through park rules, designated what those areas are that are amenable to having First Amendment activity.
Okay, well, that's going to lead to other questions, but I'll bring them offline. Thanks.
Sorry. Thank you, Councilman Espinoza. A couple questions, and then I'll leave it to Councilman Clark to close this out. We had one of the speakers kind of get into parks policy, Happy, and so just want to. Is this a designated park?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Is this a designated park?
Yes, it's a part of our designated park system. It's a golf course, part of our golf enterprise.
And is this, I'll deal with the admission-based event policy question in a second, but this is an enterprise fund. We're generating revenue. And are there other private events that are on this golf course ever been held?
Well, I mean, in addition to the golf enterprise itself, it is a fee-based operation. All of our golf courses are fee-based operations. They're open to the public, but they are fee-based operations.
Yeah, but my question is, I think this came up by one of the speakers. Have we had other private events on that golf course that were other than golf related?
I don't believe we have on Overland, but our director of golf is here, and he could speak to that.
Okay.
This is Scott Rethlake, who's director of golf.
Scott was shaking his head back
That's
there,
right.
but we're going to make
Scott
you come
Rethlake,
to the
director
front.
of golf.
Shut up.
Yeah.
We do have private golf tournaments, several of them.
Okay. Do you have any private parties at all?
We do have private parties in the clubhouse, yes.
Okay, great. And then one more question, Happy. The admission-based event, I think we all remember that conversation. How does that policy affect this particular golf course?
So the admission-based events policy addresses our parks. The golf courses are under the auspices of our golf enterprise, so they are a little bit different. It's one of the reasons why we approach this whole effort through means of a contract.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And we answer the cost of the ticket. Thank you, Councilman Cashman, for doing that. Councilman Clark?
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any questions, in part because I think the entire team from the city side, from the Superfly side, for being, I've been asking questions for the months and months and months, and I appreciate you making yourselves available to me at weird hours with requests from constituents and getting back to me in a very timely manner on all of that. I just wanted to take a second to thank all of you for all of your hard work on this, getting us to here. I wanted to thank all my colleagues for letting everybody speak, to give you an idea of just how local Denver politics can be. If we had cut it at an hour, we would have been cutting parents and grandparents of both one of my daughter's best friends at school and someone I went to high school with. And so I appreciate you letting every single person speak their mind and their piece and their opinion. And most of all, I want to thank all of you who came out here and sat through a very long night and stuck with it, and who have been so passionate on both sides of this. This is the community dialogue that makes us better as a community and as a city. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens here, your voice is so important to that process, and your passion and your thoughts and your ideas and the things that you think of that nobody else did and you bring to the table. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for being here and sticking it out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Clark, I'm going to ask you one quick question before we close. There are about 5, 6, maybe 7 people who kept saying this is a done deal. And so as someone who has been on the ground working on this, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, thank you. And that's something that's really hard for me to hear, because I don't feel like this has been a done deal at any point, including next week when this vote is going through to say yes or no. I think that it's hard sometimes when we're facing a tough decision and you feel like maybe there are more people on one side than your side, or you feel things should be done a certain way. I think to see that, and as I shared in committee, there's no set policy for when someone comes and says, can we do this on a golf course? We don't have a set thing like we do with rezonings. And so some people thought that we should do it one way, and I navigated that the best that I could, the best that I know how. And so, I think that absolutely, this, at no point have I certainly thought that this was a done deal, so I don't know who they're getting that from or where they got that from. This was a important process, and certainly not going to stand here and say that it was a perfect process, or that everyone is going to get what they want at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, we got to vote yes or no, not everybody wins. But I think, and I think we heard it from a lot of other people about the process being robust, and probably could have been more robust, but I don't know where that came from, and it does make me sad, because I do think that I've spent a lot of time listening, and everybody involved with this has spent a lot of time listening, and I think that's really important, and I know that it can be frustrating to get to a point and think or be afraid that you're not going to get what you want to do, but that's different than it actually being a done deal. So I don't know if that answers your question, Mr.
It does.
President.
Last quick question. From when you first heard about this proposal till today, how long has that been?
Long time. I don't remember when I first, that meeting that we had, when you guys called me in and said,
okay,
about a year.
So it's been a year process.
And don't quote me on that. I would have to double check when exactly that was, but.
Okay. The public hearing for 687 is now closed.